September here, and we're in a zone 5-6 now, kind of on the edge. And I wanted to share some of the plants, late season perennial plants that hummingbirds absolutely love. And unfortunately, we're going to be out of hummingbird season pretty soon because they'll be flying back south. And oftentimes if you get like northern hummingbirds, they'll come down and have whatever hummingbird feeders or flowers that you have. But I've noticed over the years, some of the flowers here that are late bloomers that the hummingbirds seem to really like. And the first one that I'm going to feature is this Verbina Bon Enus. And this is a one that's growing a little shorter, when we have some growing by the house. But they really love to dip their beak into here. And this is not one of our native plants. It's not one of our native verbenas, but it is one that is absolutely adored by hummingbirds and butterflies alike. So I was just out here maybe an hour ago, and we had some of our monarch butterflies flitting around, and they've been landing on the verbena. But also a popular plant, if you could come this way, is the Liatris. And this is the one that's in bloom right now. This is, I think this is Liatris Scariosa. And this one has also been frequented by both butterflies and hummingbirds, but hummingbirds in particular like these Liatrises. This one you could see is past, it's spent, it's in seed now. But this one, as you can imagine, is in full bloom, and they have in each one of these, there's somewhere between like 7 to like 18 little different florets in there. So when a hummingbird comes through, it looks like they're sitting there on the same flower, but what's happening is that they're dipping their beak into all these little florets. And the same thing happens with a butterfly. Its little proboscis goes in and it just kind of sits there, and it seems like it's sitting there in one plant. Let's see what else I could show you here. Well, back here, this is now in seed, but this was Lobelia Cardalis. And I'll show you one because it's still in bloom in another section. So this one over here is Lobelia Cardalis. It's called cardinal flower. This is absolutely adored by our hummingbirds. Something was making a noise and it was my drink. This is absolutely adored by hummingbirds. This is blooming quite late, so it's mid-September right now. Like I said, some of the other lobelia is past the bloom, but sometimes you'll see ones that just start to bloom a little bit later in the season. And this is kind of opposite of the Liatris. The blooms start from the bottom and then they wind up on the top towards the end, whereas in the Liatris, starts on the top and then it blooms to the bottom. So kind of opposite, but this is like the favorite. They have this like tubular shape, and then it kind of opens up into this beautiful lip, almost like a little salvia. And you'll just see them dipping their beak right into there, and they love reds, purple reds. Earlier in the season, we have some flowers like the penstemons, which are great early perennial plants for our hummingbirds. And I just saw that some of our penstemons are in bloom again. I don't know why, sometimes you have that spring and then fall bloom. But I wouldn't say that they're a reliable, like late blooming plant. So I probably wouldn't categorize that, but I have seen some of those penstemons that are coming up. And of course, if the penstemon is coming up at this season, you'll probably see a hummingbird in it, but I'm not gonna say that that's a reliable late bloomer. Let's see what else is in our garden that I have seen them dipping their beaks into. Oh, Augustaki, of course. So these are actually called Hummingbird Mints, believe it or not. And we have quite a number of them. These are shorter than some of the species varieties that are quite tall. And of course, being tall helps because the hummingbird will be flying around and they'll see it. And these might be like too hidden. But you could see they have these like cigar-shaped inflorescences. And the hummingbirds absolutely adore these. They come in all different shades and colors. So I would definitely encourage you to look for that. The other one that hummingbirds seem to like, and I'll point one out that's quite tall, is Guas. So I think this is now in a different species, Oenothera. And this one is one that they have been visiting, but I'll show you the species, Guas Biennis, which is over here. And they bloom kind of like only for a day. So we might see one here. The bumblebees absolutely are covered in this in the morning hours. And surprisingly, I had planted this on that end where I was just showing you on the Augustaki. But this is a biennial and it seems to seed very well, and it popped up here out of all places, which is in the front of the garden. And you know what? I didn't take it out because I know how much pollinators love this plant, including hummingbirds. So that would be definitely one that I would include on the list. Another late season bloom, and this is actually an annual, so I don't know if I'm cheating when I put it in here. This is not a native plant. It's from South America, and this is the Clei. And this is my first time actually planting it, and I planted it really close to here. We like to plant the Verbina Bon Enus here and the Guaras because they kind of give a little bit more of like this wispy wand-like appearance. And I'm sitting here, and when I sit here, all I see is like hummingbirds, bees, butterflies coming here, and they all kind of adore and dance around this. The bees are really funny when they're dancing around this because they're kind of tangoing with these little whiskers sticking out. But the hummingbird will go right in there, and I don't know where it's getting the nectar, but it seems like it's an effective plant to call the hummingbirds. All these like flat top clusters like the Maryland golden aster or the solidago, even though those are usually covered with other pollinators, it's just invisible to our hummingbirds. So I wouldn't recommend that if you're attracting hummingbirds late in the season. We'll head over to this garden and I'll show you some others. We're getting at the tail end of another delightful red flower. And this is one of the ones I had shared with you when I was talking about like bringing a little bit of these tropical blooms to the garden. And we're at the tail end of these Crocosmias. So I planted 2 different cultivars of Crocosmia this year. And I had Crocosmia Lucifer, and then I had Crocosmia, and I can't remember, maybe it was like Fire Engine or something. I'll have to give you the cultivar name. And I think this is the latter one that I can't think of the cultivar name. But again, perfect little red flowers for our hummingbirds. And when these were in full bloom earlier in the year, I always saw hummingbirds kind of back here. And these are still in bloom as well. So I would say that these are one of those late seasons that are blooming up until maybe the late time in September. Definitely not into October though. It's kind of like past, at least here. So one of my favorites that I wish I had planted a little bit more in the foreground of this garden because it gets a little weedy back here, but is just gorgeous. I'm sorry to say that it's not in the light right now. This is Salvia Windwalker. Look at that. I mean, that looks like bright red lipstick. Such an incredible plant. I had a few of these planted in here and I was like, oh, I have to get more of these. Just look at that color. I don't even know if that translates on camera, but this is another one that hummingbirds cannot get enough of. You'll see that I had one actually blooming here the other day. I don't know where it went, but this is it. I'll show you this plant and then we'll walk over. This is another lobelia, so this is related to the cardinalis. Let's go see it closer to Half Lake because then I'll be able to show you a bit more of that plant. That's another one. It's not like red. It's not like the red cardinal flower, but it has this beautiful kind of purplish blue hue that the hummingbirds seem to enjoy just as much as the red ones. All right, so we're approaching the lobelia right here. And again, you could see that they're blooming at different times in the garden. It was already past its prime, but take a look at this and take a look at the flower. It's that nice tube shape again that is perfect for a long-tongued bee or moth or, like I said, the hummingbird. And this is one that they will definitely enjoy late into the season. We had kind of a rose of Sharon. It was a rose of Sharon that was in that garden, but it's last year, it kind of broke in half and just was not looking so good. And so we ended up taking it out, but we have lots of swamp mallow that's blooming. And again, it's like one of those ones that bloom for a day. So these are past the prime, but you'll see this kind of scarlet swamp mallow. And that is another one that is now blooming up until September. Yeah, the red one. But we had a Rose of Sharon or like a mallow blooming in our garden pretty late, and they're just like white. But some of them have these deep red eyes, and it's that deep red eye in the middle that really attracts hummingbirds. And this one's no exception. So we don't spend as much time sitting out here by Half Lake, but I already know that that is a plant that hummingbirds really enjoy. Well, we had a contractor here who was talking about like taking the hummingbird feeders down just because some of the hummingbirds won't fly south. But I checked in with the National Audubon Society, and that's not the case. You can leave your hummingbird feeders up, especially if you live in an area that's warm all season round and they don't tend to migrate. But we'll have hummingbirds that might be coming down from further north, and it's nice to be able to have, here's one of our hummingbird feeders, and we change this pretty much weekly so that they have something fresh. And I don't fill it up to the top. I only usually put a cup in because I don't want it to get like smarmy. So I don't, and I also don't want to waste water. And I bought this for the hummingbirds to sit in, and they really do. They sit right there. It's really hilarious. It's like a little hummingbird swing. And anybody who's had hummingbirds around their house will know that they're exceptionally territorial. So I put a hummingbird feeder over there. Of course, we have like gardens that cater to hummingbirds everywhere. So it's one of those ones that I just want to spread it out, spread the love so that not one hummingbird, but multiple hummingbirds can enjoy it. Lastly, I will say, when I sit here, this is a Redend PJM. Early in the season, this is blooming, and the hummingbirds love the blooms. But I've noticed they get tricked by these red leaves, and they come in around the red leaves, and they try to dip their beak in them, but obviously there's no flowers. So they are really triggered by that color red, and it's very funny to see that because they get so confused. And I was just sitting out the other day on the porch, and I had a hummingbird I wasn't even wearing red, and the hummingbird came right up to my face and just was like looking at me, and I wasn't wearing my hat with a flower either. But yeah, I mean, if you have other suggestions of late season garden plants that you utilize that your hummingbirds absolutely love, again, I'm in New York in a zone 5-6, and these are some of the stalwarts that I see that hummingbirds always frequent. All right, I'll see you in the next episode. Bye. What are some late season perennial flowers that hummingbirds frequent in your garden? Tell us in the comments below. We'll surely be covering more gardening and landscaping for wildlife videos in the future here on Flock, so be sure to give the video a like if you enjoy topics like this. And give the channel a follow and tap the notifications button so you know when new videos release. In the coming weeks, we'll be covering our major barn renovation, so stay tuned for that. We'll see you in the next video.